disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, fake news have been with us for a long time. It is not new to the political arena. It's not new to social interactions. Obviously, as the internet penetrates more and more countries, and as social media is used more widely, fake news becomes an even more ominous threat. I understand that currently, given some CDD research recently, that some 24 million Nigerians already use social media out of a population of 200 million. But what's even more startling as a figure is that in the past year, social media use has increased some 26%. So you can imagine if we increase the use of social media by 26% each year, how vast that tool will become as a means of communication. I'm especially happy to see the media here this morning because you have a responsibility, obviously, to help counter fake news that spreads on social media. I believe as journalists you take an oath. We certainly do in my profession, in the legal professions. We take an oath to represent the public, and you take an oath to present the news accurately and facts accurately to the public. So civil society will depend very strongly on the formal media, print, television, and radio media to help counter fake news. And we've especially seen how active fake news can be in damaging interactions between communities and elections in other countries. We have seen it recently in Sierra Leone, Malawi, in Brazil, in India, not to mention how vast it's become in Ukraine and in the US over the past few years. But as internet penetration and social media spread, it also presents an unprecedented opportunity. And I would love to see civil society in Nigeria taking advantage of that opportunity more, and I'd love to see us talking about not how big a threat fake news is to Nigeria, but how big the usage of social media has become as an organizing tool of social movements in Nigeria. I think that would be a news story that would really spread around the world in a viral way. For community organizing, for rallying people to hold their representatives accountable, to promoting human rights through social movements, using social media and internet penetration. So let's not always be in a defensive mode. Obviously, we have to do all we can to counter fake news. But we should also be using the same tools that those who are now using social media in a divisive and bad way, we should be using the same tools to organize progressive social movements and the promotion of human rights. We should be using those tools to understand how your representatives are voting in the National Assembly, what bills are before them, what opportunities they have to vote, and there's no reason why we can't know immediately after the vote how they voted and spread that to their constituents and senatorial districts. So let's get out in front of this problem. Let's counter fake news, but let's also use the same tools to promote human rights and development. I want to thank you for being here this morning. There are panelists that will have many more interesting things to say than I will in this welcome. But I congratulate you for being here, and I hope to see these groups get larger and larger as we move toward the next elections. Thank you and good morning.
My name is Beatrice Rayo. I am the Democracy Officer for the Office of Peace and Democratic Governance over at the United States Agency for International Development, and I am so very, very pleased to be here today. As Aubrey had mentioned, the two-day program consists of some excellent speakers who you'll be hearing from, so I don't want to take away from those excellent presentations that you'll hear from today. I would like to thank especially our conference organizers, the Center for Democracy and Development in DIA in particular, and of course stand on existing protocols if I'm permitted. So pleased to see so many stakeholders here today for this critical discussion. So on behalf of the United States Agency for International Development, thank you for being here today. It's incredibly important, the work that CDD is doing in terms of combating disinformation and the systematic analysis that they published on this issue. This isn't a Nigerian issue alone. This is a global trend, and I think many of us have experienced it and seen it firsthand. Nigerians, like Americans and many others, get their information in a bunch of different ways. As of 2008, there were over 100 national, regional, and local newspapers, hundreds of FM radio stations across the country, nearly 70 federal government-owned national and regional TV stations in all 36 states, operating TV stations in those states, plus private and satellite television. And this does not include the internet, which is probably the single source of available information that most folks globally are now getting their information from. According to Statistica, in 2018, 47.1% of Nigerians use the internet, and this is projected to grow to 84.5% in just 4 years. That's an incredible and astonishing growth rate in terms of where people get their information and who has access. So with so many sources of information to choose from, it's imperative that critical assessment and fact-checking of the information that we not only consume, all of us, but circulate, it's incredible. It's incredible, and it's absolutely essential that we do that. It's essential for informed participation in our government, in our country. It's essential for the electoral process. It's essential for a number of ways in which we participate in the society in which we live and how we make it better. So to that end, this two-day conference gets at the heart of ascertaining what fake news is. What is misinformation? What is disinformation? How do we identify it? How is it used in elections? How can we counter it? How does it affect electoral integrity? And what is our role? Because everyone has a role. If you've got a Twitter account, if you've got an email account, you have a role in terms of ascertaining what the information is that you are reading and how you circulate it and who you distribute it to, because you lend credibility when you do that. So for this reason, I am personally looking forward to today's session and tomorrow's session and the discussions that will proceed, and I wish all of the participants much luck in these 2 days. So thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Herman Thiel, and I'm the newly arrived country director for the International Foundation for Electoral Systems in Nigeria. Please allow me to observe the protocols that the speakers before me have established. I'm really privileged that I can be at this workshop, which is one of the first events that I am attending in Nigeria after I arrived here only a few short weeks ago. And I want to commend the organizers of this event for tackling this very, very important issue. Disinformation and misinformation in electoral processes and in democracies is one of the factors that is affecting the health of democracy worldwide and in Nigeria more than many other things. It shows us how things can change. In a very short period of time, new technology and new methods of spreading information has increased the risks and the threats involved with disinformation and misinformation to all the processes around democracy and elections. And it shows how we have to be continually vigilant to protect democracy and electoral processes that we are all fighting for. My organization, IFES, considers this threat one of the most important challenges, and we are committed to working towards that. I'm very encouraged to see the spread of stakeholders, as the speakers before me have mentioned. These problems cannot be tackled unless everybody is involved. And my organization is committed to working with all of you, and especially with our main counterpart, the Electoral Commission, INEC, which I'm also very glad to see is very well represented here. Because the engagement of this organization with all the other stakeholders is key in tackling this problem when it comes to electoral processes specifically. So I look forward to learning a lot at this event, and the discussions at this event will certainly inform the way that I myself view this and that our organizations view these issues. So good luck with the conference, and I'm very happy that I can be here. Thank you very much.
My name is Isaac Otieno from the UNDP. I'm the Chief Technical Advisor on Elections. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, CDD, for inviting us. CDD is always a good party hosting, and now we become very close friends. A lot has been said by colleagues seated on the panel. So I'll only address one important issue when it comes to democracy, and especially within the United Nations context of leave no person behind. Democracy thrives on accurate information. Democracy thrives on people participating, and as many people participating willingly in the election and in the management of the affairs of their state. Within the context of human rights and within the commitment of the UN to leave no one behind, I think it is important that information is availed by the duty holders, especially those who are duty bound to have the information, that they pass this accurate information to the public within time. Misinformation and disinformation find space, in my view, when duty holders deny the populace the opportunity to get accurate information in good time. Information within the electoral process is very important, especially when it is accurate and when it is timely, and when people participate in the generation of that information. And I'm happy that INEC is in this session, represented at very high level. And as we begin to think about Kogi and Bayelsa election, it will be very critical that information that the voters there require is passed to them on time and accurately, because INEC is a duty holder. The voters in Kogi and Bayelsa are claim holders, right holders, and they need that information to be given to them accurately. The UN, and especially the UNDP, will continue to support INEC and work with other partners to counter any misinformation and disinformation, because we know that democracy only thrives when people have the accurate information and when people are given a fair chance to participate willingly. So those are the remarks. I wish this two-day conference a great success, and I look forward to actively engaging. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is James Opam. I'm the President Electoral Commissioner for Kogi State. Just like the speakers have said, we in INEC are always at the receiving end of all these forms of disinformation, misinformation, and fake news. Just last week, we had a similar meeting in Lokoja, organized by the CDD, and I told the participants what we've gone through, what I have personally gone through, by way of this information, disinformation and misinformation. I think it's quite disheartening to hear the kind of things that we see in the media, especially the social media. One reason is that the politicians think they have a license to say anything at all just because they're politicians. And one other end is that the young people, like I give the example of my own state, Benue State, there are quite a number of young people who don't have jobs. And so every day, they go to work on Facebook. They go to work on Facebook, commenting on virtually everything that they see there without doing anything about it. And that is why these kinds of fake news keep spreading. I know, of course, it's a duty to give information. That's what we always try to do. But of course, people those who want otherwise, think otherwise, will always give the kind of news that they want people to hear. Especially the politicians, with all forms of accusations and all that. So I think we want to thank the CDD for these kinds of meetings. I think you're helping us do our work, and I want to thank you so much for it. I was telling my friend, the chairman, and others who sat there, that the good things that are done in this country appear like little drops of water in the desert. But that shouldn't deter us. we will keep doing the things that we think are positive, hoping that we can bring much more positive impacts in the work that is done in the public space. So thank you very much. I think I'll be speaking to you again later when we consider the partners for us to discuss. Thank you.
But I don't think I will allow the children to go because we need to share an experience of a specific disinformation against this person in bias in Kogi State. We don't want to share.
Well, that's okay. I thought I was going to say that during the panel discussions. Yeah, but that's okay. One of them, like I said before, is that I've suffered it personally. I remember during the last election, before the elections, there was some news item on Facebook that I said that the former Senate President gave me $1 million to accept printed ballot papers. I think that's quite. And then I found people from my place, reposting it repeatedly. I tried to comment, and somebody advised me, please just stop it. So I had to go back, delete my own post. I think that making the matter die like that. And recently we've come across about the same thing again. You find all sorts of, like I've said, is either on social media or even the conventional media. The politicians especially would hold press conferences and say all sorts of things without trying to cross-check their information because they think they have a license to do that just because they call themselves politicians. But I think we'll find ways of tackling this fake information. That's why I did commit this kind of training. My staff receive the training in local, so I think we'll find ways of countering this kind of information as time goes on. Thank you.
I think in INEC, there is always a statement shared by my commissioner. He normally says, INEC does not register voters in the cyberspace. Neither does it have a polling unit in social media. But still, youth normally go there for information. It's quite challenging. And the way we look at disinformation and misinformation, INEC and the electoral process, I can see, are the worst hit. Because people believe without any attempt to authenticate information they could find in the social media, they normally believe it. Quite unfortunate. The youth go there and they believe whatever information they could find there. And I think, going by the convention in the media practice, I wonder how somebody who chooses to be the reporter and still the editor and the publisher himself, and you find that whichever information he uploads, people go there and believe it. Of recent, I think there is one terrible information against INEC that the US Embassy has extended visa. Somebody from the back, I'm sure the information is already there. But I quite appreciate the CDD for fact-checking that piece of information and confirming to public that that information is fake. The US Embassy has never, ever placed visa prohibition on INEC chairman, commissioners, or other officials. I quite appreciate being part of this program, and will be coming to the podium to say a word or two later. Thank you so much.
To say it's indeed a privilege for us to be here. Quite uniquely, we've collaborated with the Center for Democracy and Development to implement a few activities in support to the electoral process in Nigeria. Most recently, Mr. Ali would recall, we've had a few conferences and workshops as well, specifically in support to the management and mitigation of disinformation and misinformation. And I know he didn't want to mention earlier, but ECS also supported the Commission to set up a media monitoring unit. And hopefully, in the coming months and years, as the Commission continues to work, the issue of misinformation will be much more enhanced, and in terms of the approach of addressing these issues, the monitoring of this information and disinformation would be targeted, streamed and properly addressed in a timely fashion, as has been also put together by Mr. Isaac. So indeed, it is quite, we commend CDD for your work, the fact-checking and also the information by Mr. Liu. It's quite commendable. We've been hit as well, even during the recent elections. But of course, we've had quite a lot of actors up on their toes trying to see that these issues are properly addressed. So indeed, we are quite happy to be here, and we hope that all deliberations here would be quite fruitful and useful for the improvement of our electoral processes. So do have a great deliberation. Thank you.
My name is Samuel So. I'm standing here on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture. Lai Mohammed would have been here with you, but for obvious reasons, he's not here and asked me to stand in for him. He has asked me to commend the Center for Democracy and Development in a very special way for putting this gathering in place that we address the burning issue of fake news, disinformation, which have reached a crescendo and requires all hands to be on deck. As you may recall, last year the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture launched a campaign on hate speech and fake news preparatory to the 2019 general elections. Thereafter, the National Orientation Agency, one of the parastatals under the ministry, took the campaign to all the length and breadth of this country, appealing to citizens not to create fake news, not to spread, and not to promote. The engagement of citizens and the international community was very fruitful. INEC on its part also, before the 2019 general elections, engaged citizens and all the stakeholders, including the international community, detailing all the processes and what it takes to do during and after the elections. All these were done so that no room will be left for speculation or misinformation. However, as you are aware, members of the fifth columnists, either as fun or to gain political gains, or to vent their anger, or to discredit government and institutions, and some extent individuals make use of the social media platforms to cause havoc, create tension, which may lead to violence. As you are aware, the conventional media, which can be monitored and then to some extent sanctioned, the social media is not the same. You can sit in the comfort of your room, create anything, send it out, and you have customers who can spread it for you. We are appealing to all peace-loving citizens of this country and our friends, the international community, and the defenders of democracy, that we should do everything to discourage the creation, the spread, and promotion of fake news and misinformation. The mistakes that were recorded in the 2019 general elections should be a basis for us to improve and work towards the governorship coming up in Bayelsa and Kogi states. And we appeal to all the politicians should base their campaigns on issues and not character assassinations. The Federal Ministry of Information will therefore join hands with all many citizens to do everything possible for the sustenance of democracy and for our country to move forward. On this note, I thank you very much and I wish you a fruitful deliberation.